Welcome, students, to your Human and Social Biology class. I am your teacher, Mr. Heron. Today we're going to be looking at the food chain. Our objectives for this class are: what is a food chain? We're going to be defining the following terms: producers, consumers, herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. And lastly, we're going to be looking at what is trophic level. So, what is a food chain? When you hear the term food chain, what comes to mind? Chain of food? Not exactly. Close, but not exactly. A food chain is simply a diagram which shows the feeding relationship between different organisms. So a food chain is a simple diagram that shows the feeding relationship between organisms. Let's see what a simple food chain looks like. We have grass, which are your producers. We have cows. Cows eat grass. And finally, we have humans. Humans eat cow. And there you have it, a simple food chain. Now let's look at the terms that we highlighted in our objectives. We have producers. Producers are organisms that make their own food. So in this simple food chain, the grass would be the producer because the grass makes its own food. Next, we have the consumers. And the consumers are organisms that feed on other organisms. So in this simple food chain, the cow would be a consumer. Now, we have different levels of consumer. We have primary consumers and we have secondary consumers. Which of these would you think the cow represents? That's correct. Primary consumers, right? And of course, humans would be the secondary consumers in this scenario. Next, we're going to be looking at herbivores. What are herbivores? These are animals that eat or consume only plants or plant matter. Question, can you think of any herbivore besides cow, of course? That's right. Goats, sheep, giraffe. You got it. Next, we're going to be looking at carnivores. Carnivores are animals that eat other animals. So when you think carnivore, think cheetah, lion, tigers that feed on other animals or meat. Next, we have omnivore. And these are animals that eat both plants, and other animals. So let's recap. What is a food chain? A food chain is a simple diagram that shows a feeding relationship between organisms. Here you have a simple diagram of a food chain. Grass, cows eat grass, and humans eat cows. Producers. Producers are organisms that make their own food. Consumers are organisms that feed on other organisms. Herbivores are animals that eat only plants or plant matter. Carnivores are animals that eat other animals. And omnivores are animals that eat both plants and other animals. So let's look at what is trophic level. Now, trophic level, the different levels at which organisms feed is called trophic level. Plants are producers, herbivores are primary consumers, and carnivores are secondary consumers. Now, it's important to note that omnivores will feed at 2 or more different trophic levels. All right, so let's write that. And there you have it. So let's recap. Trophic level is the different level at which organisms feed. Plants are producers, herbivores are primary consumers, carnivores are secondary consumers, and herbivores will feed on 2 or more trophic levels. Thanks for joining. I hope you learned something.